Okay, as I mentioned in the intro, I've got Lynn and John with me. We are all senior photographers, but we won't give away ages. Anyway, you're supposed to smile, Lynn. Come on. Yeah, we all have been doing this photography thing for a long time. But let me give you sort of the gist of the story. And as we go forward, on the podcast, I've been advocating less printing and more book publishing. I think the books have a far greater impact. They really represent well thought out projects than the one-off single image. And books are very easy to really publish today, whether you use Blurb or one of the other publishing services. And so Lynn and John, this came in out of the air. I mean, I'm sitting in my favorite chair, and there's a book shows up, and I looked at it and I said, it's on the Palouse, and I started thumbing through it, and I'm not exaggerating because Lynn and John are friends. I said, this is phenomenal. It's laid out well. It does things that people say you shouldn't combine color and black and white. Well, it does it beautifully. And it showed a side of the Palouse that, quite frankly, I had never seen before. I've seen the rolling hills, and you're going to see some of that shots, but you're going to see some other things from the Palouse that you didn't think were there. And I know they put this thing together. Actually, I was on a photo shoot with a friend in Farmington, and they were up in Albuquerque putting together this beautiful book. So anyway, you guys, how long was the shoot in the Palouse where you gathered these photographs?
A little less than a week, maybe 5 days.
About 5 days.
Is that right, Lynn? Yeah.
And we were invited by one of our friends to join him. He was going to join up with a mentor friend of his who's very well known, and we were invited to join. And I live in Washington State, and haven't been to the Palouse in many, many years, and said, oh, this sounds like fun. So we drove over there.
And so you were there for 4 or 5 days. And just out of curiosity, it's not important exactly on the count, but I mean, you had to go through these photographs. How many photographs did you sort through? Just random number. It's not important, but just an idea.
400 to 500.
400 to 500 images that both you guys took.
About that. Mm-hmm.
And were you all over the Palouse? In other words, were you in most of the prominent locations that people normally go to?
Well, I think so. I mean, our friend had been to the Palouse many, many times, and he was the driver, and he would take us down these roads. And there are a few spots that people go to. One of them is a little mountain that sits in the middle of it called Steptoe. And that way you get a view of the entire area. Mostly we just went around the back roads, and it was very colorful because the wheat was green and the canola was yellow. So there was a lot of, that's why the group was out there mostly.
Okay. And so you drove around randomly, and the driver found his way, and actually his name is Harry, but Harry found his way around there, and then you took the pictures. So you gathered all these pictures up, 400 or 500 images. And so when did the brainstorm come to make the book? And John and Lynn have made books before, so this is not unusual for them to make a book. So when did you guys decide, hey, let's get these photos together and start doing something with them?
Well, I don't know, near the end of the summer, because I have harvests that I have to oversee. So, it takes us a few months to kind of, at first you go through and you get rid of all the stuff you don't like. And then in time, over a few months, I picked about 50, but it was in my mind somewhere along the way. We knew we were going to do a book. We said, gee, it seems like we ought to do a book of this. But it came to me somewhere in early December or September that we ought to try making a book with the two of us as authors, and not just have my pictures separate from John's pictures. In other words, I thought it would be an interesting challenge to look at the imagery, see what we wanted to say, and integrate both of our pictures, both of our sets of pictures.
Okay.
And that's what we did with the book.
Okay. So then, John, did you guys, when you got together, you used Lightroom, right? Lightroom has that book publishing section in it.
Mhm.
And I mean, so the audience knows how you loaded up maybe 150 photos, and so and then just, I mean, putting the two people putting the book together can be a challenge. I hope you had some wine to work it through, but so you loaded all the images up and then just started sorting. Is that what you did and made the flow of the book?
Well, we went through them, both looking at a bunch arrayed on the screen and sequentially a number of times. And then we just started selecting images, and we were both not doing this separately, we were doing this together. And we have a remarkably unified set of perceptions that we brought to the project. So we were actually amazed when we got to the end and had made the selections. We put all the pictures in we thought were needed to tell the story, whatever story there is in it. We weren't trying to force any narrative on it, and we didn't. And we let it emerge from the quality of the images and their content. But when we got to the end and counted them up, we were exactly half Lynn's pictures and half my pictures. We made no effort consciously to do that. We just said, we're not going to worry about attribution. We're just going to make the strongest book we can think of. And that takes, repetition. You go through it and go through it and go through it and go through it, take some out, put some in, reorganize them until it sort of came together. And anyway, it was actually quite an enjoyable process.
So you
Yeah, it
did
was fun. Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynn.
It didn't take us very long either. I mean, I think I arrived on a Monday. We started looking maybe Monday evening or Tuesday morning, and we had that book up to blurb for including the introduction by Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
Wow. So you took.
We really, the thing is that John and I have similar perceptions, similar ways of photographing. Sometimes when we show our work in a group, it looks like we both photograph the same thing. So there was not a lot of conflict.
It's obviously there was no conflict, at least I didn't.
There wasn't any conflict. And what we both had the same kind of idea, what we felt about the Palouse, because so often when you see an area, it's always about what is three-dimensionally there, like a barn, whatever, it's very three-dimensional. And when I photograph, I usually get out and I stand around. And meanwhile, everybody in the group is photographing and I'm just standing around thinking, well, what do I feel here? And after a few days of driving and photographing in the Palouse, it felt to me like water. And I said to John, I said, it feels to me like water. There was water here. These are waves. And so we did some research about the Palouse and how it was formed. And so that was our focus in the book.
Mhm.
So you
And then
did,
we started with very abstract imagery. And if you go through the book, you notice that by the end of it, we put in some details,
Mhm.
yeah,
like trucks and things that what the Palouse stands for, like the farming, the silos, the trucks, the whatever, barns.
Mhm.
and what I would do for anybody to, the photos that I'm going to show, and hopefully I've got all, I don't know if I had them all put in, maybe I screwed, but anyway, I've got about 8 or 9 photos, but that doesn't do the book justice, quite frankly. What I think you ought to do if you want to take a look at the book, and I would hope you would, because I think it's a good representation of how to put a book together and the flow and so forth. Go on blurb.com and type in John Trotter, Trotter, or Lynn Weyand, Weyand, and you'll find the book there. But and I might add, and sort of tongue in cheek and facetiously, we got a little right brain and left brain going here. So I guess maybe that combination is we made the whole thing together, didn't we? The whole it worked out. It worked out so beautifully. I was going to ask you in Lightroom, from a technical thing, so the audience knows, did you use the grid view in Lightroom to really do the sorting? And then as you did the sorting, you moved each image into the book. Is that how you worked it?
Something like that. We certainly use the composite image on the screen of all the small photos
Yeah.
to look at the sequence and how things were flowing and where we wanted page breaks. And because the experience of going through the book from start to finish, even though most people will pick up a book and flip through it from the starting at the end.
Yeah, you're right. True.
Which is okay, but if you go through it from start to finish, you'll see it has a kind of flow. The imagery, one image builds on the one before and creates some preparation for the one after, and then you get to a point where you take a breath and it's a blank page.
Right.
So you can sort of think of it as a musical way of organizing visual information.
Yeah. I going back to Lynn's comment about and it's very true, Lynn. We, with the digital age, we now rush out of the car or whatever, and we start taking photographs. And I was listening to a podcast from Brooks Jensen, who I think used to be in the Washington area. He's traveling around. His wife passed away, but more importantly, he was out in Death Valley, and and like you, he went out to the dunes out there, and he said now he just goes out and sits before he does any photography. And he said now he's able to come back with images that are not repetitious, but represent what he felt and saw there. And I think that's an interesting kind of observation, the same one you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I tell you what, I mean, I photographed now for 50 years and I have a huge inventory. And at a certain point, you're kind of going, well, what am I going to do with this? So
Yeah.
I'm in process of trying to downsize my inventory. And so when I go out now and shoot, I only want to shoot something. A lot of times if I shoot, I throw them all out.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the digital era makes us overshoot, and consequently that's you're right. You've got to go, and you go on a workshop trip, and I hear the click of the shutter. Sometimes it's like a machine gun. I haven't been on a workshop in a long time, but and then you wonder, you got to sort through them, and you get rid of about 99% of them. So let's take a look at some of these images. and I'm going to put them up on the screen. We'll talk about them a little bit. And like I said, the unfortunate thing is through Zoom, you can't really show what the book looks like. So I would encourage everybody, you can look at the book in a PDF form on Zoom. So let's take a look at one of the first ones I have here. We're going to bring it up, and there we go. Now this is a little bit of the wave pattern you were talking about, right, guys?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
It
Okay.
feels like I'm in a rowboat. I mean,
It really does. It really does. It's a lot of the whatchamacallit, a lot of the Palouse is like that, but there is an image that I have after that that is I love this image. I think this should I think you should sell this image. This is great. Look at this. This, you know what, this made me feel of a flying saucer.
Yeah, right.
That's exactly how I felt. You know, something's landed. What an unusual image. It really is. It's beautiful. It really it goes away from representing. Well, you know, it does have a little bit of a wave action in there. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Well, this was when we were walking, was it on Steptoe Butte or near Steptoe
no,
Butte?
no, we were in the back field after we,
After we finished at Steptoe? Yeah. But
no, it was later in the day, and I don't think it's Steptoe. I think
okay.
I can remember seeing that image and actually trying to photograph it. When I saw John's picture, I went, oh, okay, I can trash mine.
Well, one of the things that may not be noticeable to people unless they've worked with infrared is that my images are almost all infrared images.
Uh-huh.
And Lynn was not using infrared. So there will be a difference in the tonalities, especially of the green areas, because of the infrared picking that up as a very bright white. And so that gives the images a somewhat different quality, but it can be quite subtle at times. So this image, just as you said, like a flying saucer, it is a poetic image to me, because it's not telling you what you should think about or think about the image. It basically invites you to explore your own imagination. And there's plenty in there to stimulate the imagination.
Yeah, like my flying saucer idea. And you know, I have to tell you, John, I looked at this image, and you do, and not that it shouldn't stand out. I think one of the issues with people shooting a lot of infrared, a lot of times you can tell it's infrared and it's overdone. This image, you said it's infrared. I never would have known that.
Right.
I never ever would have known that. I mean, it doesn't come off. Now we've got some other images that I could tell that were infrared, but certainly not this one.
Mhm.
So, okay, let's take a look at another image here. There we, oh, okay. You guys were out in whatchamacallit, Traverse City with me, and these old barn windows are just, but there's a stillness here, isn't there?
Mhm.
That's a question. I mean, that is, what do you think, Lynn?
Well, I've always been drawn to windows, and also I had a mentor, Oliver Galliani, who used to say to me that if there was an open window or door, a vine or a tree would try to grow toward it, which to me was so fascinating. So, I mean, these haven't grown, they're in front of the window, but there's a mystery here, and it's certainly timeless. And I've had people looking at the book and they all stop at this image. So,
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, and you didn't, and I think part of the reason I like the image so much is that you didn't take the little tree, you know, the twig thing out of there. I think that adds I think it adds a lot to the image. I mean, just the bare window would have been okay, but I think the tree branches there, I think it just helps the image a lot.
mhm.
Okay, so now let's take a look. Here's another, and John, if this is infrared, another one that I can't tell that it's infrared. Is it infrared?
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
And
super.
I photographed this exact same image and, you know, in not in infrared. And it just isn't as good for some reason.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously you had the green down there. So when you did it regular black and white, Lynn, and you converted it, it didn't pop? Is that what happened?
It didn't pop. And there wasn't, I mean, I'm sure that there are, well, I'm not sure, but I know that there's lots of different kinds of software that can make things pop. But
Yeah,
I'm kind of a straight photographer, always have been, and so I don't use those extra things to make things. If it doesn't pop, then it isn't in the image, it isn't in the image.
I hear you. Okay.
So I don't manipulate it as much, but this is beautiful and it came out really well.
Yeah, it did. And the next one now, this really, in my opinion, this shot here shows the expansiveness of the Palouse, doesn't it? I mean,
Mhm.
Getting back to your metaphor about the waves and the water, and isn't this a perfect example?
Well, yeah, this is on top of step 2 or step toe, whatever the name of that little hill is. And what surprised me were the wind machines in the background, which are really just on the edge of the Palouse. The Palouse is huge. I mean, it's what is it? What was it? 18,000 square miles or something. It was very big. It goes in even into Idaho and some into Oregon.
Okay. Wow.
yeah, and I
And-
think the windmills really represent contemporary Palouse because
Right.
it's obviously a commercial area. It's always been commercial farming, although the farms are family run. Lynn had an extended conversation with a person in our motel lobby who knew a lot about the Palouse, the farming of the Palouse, the history, and it's mostly family farms, she discovered, which was a very interesting thing to think about. This really large area with the need of large equipment for dryland farming of wheat and canola, but owned generally by families rather than corporations.
And
Yeah.
the thing is, though, that he said that it was getting some of the farm families had given up. The weather has changed, and like when we were there, the wheat was only half the size. We were there around the solstice time, so third week of June, and the wheat should be about knee high, and it wasn't. It wasn't more than what, maybe
Half of
10.
that, yeah.
Half that.
Mm, yeah.
So, and it's dry land.
Mhm.
There's no irrigation here.
Okay. Okay. Now this is another view of one of the barns here, and how, for a matter of fact, going back to that last one, I was going to mention that if the barn or the farmhouse, whatever that is, wasn't in there, I think it wouldn't have the same contextual meaning.
Mhm.
But having that in there, and then Now, these don't necessarily follow in the book like this because I asked John, let me just pick out some images and we'll talk about them. But I think this is another, you know, you didn't have to shoot the barn in 3/4 or, you know, stand up next to it or whatever. You got down low and you shot this thing. And I mean, is this infrared, John?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. I just, you know, because there's so much farming there. When I
Mhm.
look at this thing, I think, yeah, you know, it's got the grasses in there and so forth. And it's just another, you know, just another representation of the, you know, of the surrounding area, and you get a great feel for it. So,
Yeah, and I think having the close-up plant, the one that sticks up above the barn top
yeah,
in focus, and the
yeah,
close things in focus and have the focus fall off as you get back to the barn
right.
has it's a very effective image because of that. If everything were perfectly sharp, it wouldn't work nearly as well.
I agree. Yeah, you don't need detail and everything, and I think you just need, you got the detail in the foreground, and that tells the story, and
Right?
we can tell the barn is back there.
But the other
Now,
thing about this that I think Lynn and I both found true of the Palouse is you maybe start out with your focus on the plants, the wheat, the canola, the ground, the shape of the contours of the ground. But the sky itself is such a dramatic component of the Palouse experience that you know, you have to work not to have dramatic skies in your photographs.
yeah, nice to
It's
have
not worth
cloud.
it. It's not worth doing though.
Not, yeah, no, I don't, a lot of people put clouds in nowadays, but I'd rather see,
Yeah.
I'd rather
These
see.
are all natural clouds. None of them have been cloned in.
Well, a lot of people, you'll see a lot of photographs of the Palouse and there are always these red barns everywhere. And basically, John and I are really black and white photographers, but we shoot in color and then we post edit. I post edit in black and white. And yet in the book, there's quite a number of color images that I took actually, which I don't generally do. And we felt that we needed to maybe put in some color because it was so spectacular. So,
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because look at this. Huh?
well, the canola was in full bloom.
Yeah.
And that actually comes from, what does canola mean? John, do you
Do you know what canola means, Jim?
No, John, I don't.
Well, it comes from rapeseed oil.
Uh-huh.
In Europe, that people make rapeseed oil, and if you go to Northern Europe, you see at the right season of the year huge fields of yellow flowers, which are rapeseed oil. But the rapeseed oil has some acid in it that, and as it accumulates, can be toxic to humans. So the Canadians took on just a standard plant breeding approach to create a canola, or rather to create a rapeseed oil that would not have toxicity. So they succeeded, and now it's one of the dominant oils in North America. So it stands for Canadian oil of low acidity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's an acronym, sort of.
John, you ought to be on Jeopardy.
I love that kind of thing. So yeah, so we all have been using canola for years and never
Yeah.
gave it a thought.
Never gave it a thought. Oh, wow. Okay, here's going into now here's a, you know, shot of the Palouse that I really hadn't expected to see. Is this a small town that was there or an old farmhouse or?
It's a small town. This was a store.
Okay.
I forgot the name of the town. Do you remember, Lynn?
Hopper, I think. It's right off of Washington State 26 on the way to Colfax. It's sort of just as you start into the Palouse when you're from the west, if you're coming from the west.
Okay.
And it's not, I mean, it's sort of a little tiny abandoned town, and I think they had fruit there too, because do you have a photograph of the train tracks to show? Or?
Yeah, I have a photograph of the train tracks, which is gonna come up next. But see, I think, you know, people run out and do the or the photographers, excuse me, run out and do the Palouse, and they obviously focus on the patterns and the light and so forth. But I
Yeah.
think they miss simple things like this. And I think this is important because it adds more character to the book, and it gives one a more expansive view of what's really there.
Yeah.
And okay, and here is the train track shot. I thought, you know, this is great. I mean, I thought when I first saw it, I thought, well, this is a great addition to the book because of the fact that they had to get that grain in the market someplace or
Right.
somehow,
Yeah.
and doesn't this just, you know, give you that, you know, that representation? So
Yeah.
yeah, that is great. And that's the last one I've got. And I could have put them all in here and we could have talked about this for the next 3 hours. So there we go.
Well, good. You made a good selection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this, I mean, you got to really see the book. I mean, that really is the key. And, you know, go to Blurb, as I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, and check it out, because I have, my copy right here. It's excuse the light. And it's not sepia tone. That just happens to be the light that's cast on there. It's black and white, but then you'll see not only all of the photos, but their artist statement that is in the back of the book. So have you guys showed this book around to a lot of friends?
I've shown it to some.
Yeah.
I have.
Few people.
And I bet you they have the same feelings that I do, that this thing is
Yeah,
great.
they really like it.
Yeah, I think it I think it has a lot of possibilities if you know, you want to take advantage of them, if you want to take advantage of them. It's up, you know, whatever. Or you can put it in your,
So,
go ahead,
you
Lynn.
know, it's kind of tricky. Publishing it in Blurb, the cost to publish it was
Right.
$50.
Yeah,
So, you know, I don't think you could ask for more than 50.
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
You know, so if people want to buy it, then they can buy it, and that's great. But we're not making any money on it. We left it at $50. So.
Right. And it's,
But people can download a PDF
yeah,
for free. And then the best way to look at the PDF is in preview if you're using a Mac. And I guess Windows has something equivalent, but I don't know what it is. Because it allows you to see the spreads just the way they are. Whereas if you just do an Adobe Reader view, you don't get that information. It just,
yeah. And I think in any book, sequencing is so important that if you get it in the PDF, you want to sequence it correctly, like the book is sequenced. And so forth. Anyway, hey, listen, guys, I really appreciate you taking time out on a Sunday. And it's great to talk to you guys again. It really is. And it's good to see you guys again. And, you know, it's always a pleasure. And this really made it special. And that's not hyperbole. You really made this special to see not only you guys, but the book. So you guys take care. And,
well, thanks, Jim. It's been really nice being with you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
yeah, thank you.